Hi you guys, and welcome back to Jewell's Gems. Before we jump into two of today's topics, I want to say happy International Women's Day. In honor of today, I am wearing one of the three colors, purple being one of those colors. The other two colors, just as a friendly news you probably cannot use, is green and white. When I think about International Women's Day, I think about all of the strong women in my life. Not only all the strong women in my life, but also the strong young little girls that will one day become women and giants in their own right. Specifically, my niece that I love and adore so much. Season 8, episode 1 of Married to Medicine, my thoughts and opinions. A loose recap, if you will. That's one thing that I notice as it relates to the different recaps that's done by YouTubers. Like, they go scene by scene, and sometimes the scenes are not even worth discussing. Alexander Rogers, if you don't know him, he is also a giant on YouTube, in my opinion. He is good to do a fast forward. So that is equivalent to what I'm actually going to be doing. I just won't even address the topic because I just don't feel that there is a need for it. So moving forward, I ask that you be patient with me as I familiarize myself with doing this, because again, it's kind of like really outside of my wheelhouse. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your support. So starting off with Married to Medicine, as they have done on nearly every single episode 1, regardless of the shows, whether it's a reality show and or a scripted show, we are reminded of 2020, specifically George Floyd. I am not someone who can take watching or hearing videos such as George Floyd. I cannot do. I can't stomach it. Energetically, it wipes me out. So it catches me off guard. I wish that shows would give a disclaimer to let people know, and if they did, I missed it, to give people some type of alert or notification that they are about to play this man begging for his life. Because when I start to hear it, I cannot mute or fast forward fast enough. When we watch these shows, we watch these shows to escape. So I do understand on some level how some of these sports fans feel as it relates to watching their favorite teams and just being solely entertainment. I get it, but I also do appreciate the fact that these shows are going on record as it relates to the events that are not fictional. They have always been a reality. They will continue to be a reality until people start being honest, taking accountability, and being a part of the community that is working their asses off to uproot systemic racism and police brutality. First thing with Dr. Damon and his wife, Dr. Heavenly, and Dr. Jackie and Dr. Scott, where they are going to underserved communities within the area that they live in to perform the COVID-19 testing. Okay, the reason why they are going through to those underserved communities is because They are underserved. They are oftentimes overlooked, and those are looked at as the hierarchy, if you will. They are always last, but the most affected in any capacity. So shout out to Dr. Damon, shout out to Dr. Heavenly, Dr. Jackie, Dr. Scott for not just in this season, but in previous seasons before. They always pay it forward. One way. In the first scene, Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Jackie are sitting with one another after they have finished testing as many people they can possibly test for this horrific disease, just to check in with each other and see if Dr. Jackie has actually spoken with Dr. Simone. So previously at the last reunion, Dr. Simone, Dr. Jackie, and Dr. Heavenly were in this triangle vortex of friendship, if you will. It actually started when Cecil made fun of Dr. Heavenly's house by mentioning something along the lines of pressure washing her house or something, which then triggered Dr. Heavenly to talk about Dr. Simone's husband, Cecil, and him being unemployed. Then that made Dr. Simone feel some type of way, because at one point, Dr. Simone and Dr. Heavenly were close, and Dr. Simone shared something close or intimate with Dr. Heavenly as it relates to her perspective of what she needed from her husband at the time that he was not willing to give, and that is he was laid off and he was trying to do real estate, and she wanted him to seek a more stable job, I guess, if you will. And so because of that rift, it created this wedge between Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Simone. Mind you, Dr. Jackie has known Simone for 20 plus years. They are the definition of best friends. However, throughout the course of the different seasons, Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Jackie have gotten close. They were all three close at one point. And now, because of the rift between Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Simone feels as though Dr. Jackie should be on her side and choose her friendship for Dr. Simone than her friendship with Dr. Heavenly. Dr. Jackie, in general, is not choosing sides. She's actually staying completely neutral. She wishes these two professional women could come together and seek an understanding, which they thought they did at the last reunion in New York. Dr. Simone gave this impression that she has been heard, she has been understood, accountability has been taken. Yes, it's going to take baby steps to rebuild that level of trust and friendship. However, since then, it's been crickets, especially with Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone. Let me tell y'all, I think I touched on this on another video. I am with Dr. Jackie. I actually am a combination of Dr. Jackie and Dr. Heavenly. Like, literally, I know it seems night and day, but those really are my personalities meshed in one, if you will. I'm not extremely hot. I'm not extremely cold. I am a good combination of the two, in my humble opinion. But I am in agreement with Dr. Jackie. I'm not choosing sides. If both of my friends are at odds with each other, that's not my business. I'm staying the hell up out of it. Y'all two need to figure it out. It does not change. I'm not more allegiant to this friend than I am to this friend, and I'm not more allegiant to you than I am to this friend. It doesn't matter how long I've known you all. I'm not picking sides. To me, that is immature, and you are asking entirely too much from me, because that issue is between you two. She did not do anything to me. And you did not do anything to me. And to put Dr. Jackie in a position where she feels like or one person is feeling as though she has to choose, and that is Dr. Simone. Dr. Heavenly is not telling Dr. Jackie, hey, Dr. Jackie, you need to choose between who you're going to be friends with. No. And that is probably why she hangs more with Dr. Heavenly, because there is a level of maturity, emotional maturity, that Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Jackie share with one another that Dr. Simone has not elevated to, if you will. I think that it was not that big of a deal, but again, I'm speaking from someone who was not in that position. I'm not going to take away that it hurt Dr. Simone's feelings, that something that she shared with Dr. Heavenly that she felt was very intimate, that Dr. Heavenly did not interpret it that way. I think it is also a level of miscommunication or misunderstanding. Like when I tell you something in confidence, then I need you to understand that that's not something you need to share with the world unless you hear me sharing it with the world. And hell, even then, don't share it with the world. So I get Dr. Simone's grievance, right? But again, what I don't agree with Dr. Simone is her wanting Dr. Jackie, because they've known each other for so long, for that to be the gauge. And when Dr. Jackie is probably like, it's not that big of a deal, girl. Like, you putting 20 on 10, and it's just like, no, it's not that serious. A lot of times I will say me, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but even though I know a lot of people feel this way. For some reason, when I think about doctors, or I think about like very serious positions such as attorneys, judges, scientists, astronauts, like anything that is like kind of like a phenom, I always think that they lack personality. So one of the reasons why I love this show is because we get to see the other side of these doctors, especially Black doctors, because Dr. Simone, on her way home, after a long day's work, makes the statement that she and Dr. Jackie, their relationship is still distant. There was no progression from when they last saw each other and had this what seemed like a very healing moment at the reunion in New York, and that she's really focused on being around family and close friends. And the fact that she doesn't still identify Dr. Jackie as being a close friend, one has to know that she's speaking out of hurt. She's still hurt. And one of the things that I wish she had the wherewithal is that at the reunion, when she gave the impression and she told people that, you know, we're good, we're just going to work on things, that she should have been honest in that moment. She should have been as transparent as she possibly can, because that's where miscommunication happens. You say one thing, but you really don't mean what you're saying. You still feel some type of way. You still don't feel heard, which I totally get as to why she feels that way. The part that I don't get is that she just was not transparent enough. I know for me, I fall victim of that. I will say just to say sometimes, I don't know if I still do that now, but I will say, or I have been known to say, yeah, I'm good. And I'm really still not good. So it's a learning process. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. There is still room for opportunity to grow emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And this is a learning opportunity for not just Dr. Simone, Dr. Heavenly, and Dr. Jackie, but for those of us who watch this show. We can definitely use this this opportunity as a learning and teaching moment. So now she makes it home with her youngest son, Michael. Michael has grown. Let me tell you something. A few seasons ago, it might have been 2 or 3 seasons ago, because again, we're on season 8. I cannot believe we are actually in season 8, you guys. I feel like we're really on season 5. That's how long I feel like, or how short of a window that I feel like Married to Medicine has been on. But I'm going to give them their flowers. They made it to season 8, and it's still interesting. It still captures my attention. So a few seasons ago, Michael was starting to like girls, if you will, becoming of an age where he's noticing girls and he's looking at them differently. And Dr. Simone made this statement and was like, now mind you, it's of a little girl, but it resonated with me. It touched me. Like, I felt her. Matter of fact, I think, don't quote me on this, but it might have been season 3 or season 4, because I had just had my son, or a year later, he was either 1 or I had just had my son. Either way, it resonated with me. It touched me. I felt her. I didn't feel like she disrespected nobody, but she made this statement and she was like, she did like this sneaking thing. Was it even about Michael? It might have been about her other son, but either way, she was doing this, incognito, trying to check on her son. And I think one of the producers behind the scenes was like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? And she was just like, cause what did she say? I had it a few minutes ago. I just want to know who that bitch is. Bitch, it gave me all my life. That is when I knew that me and Dr. Simone were somewhat kindred spirits. You understand me? Because that's all I be wanting to know. I just want to know who that bitch is. I don't care if that bitch happened to be a child. I know it sounds disrespectful. It does. But when I say bitch, it doesn't mean nothing bad. It's just a word. It's just a terminology. It's not used to hurt anyone's feelings. But it's just a word like she. I just want to know who she is. Okay, you see how that flows? That's what that word means to me. When she said it, I didn't take offense to it. I connected with her on that level. So, Michael is a 2020 graduate. Y'all, I don't want to make this about my son, but he was also a 2020 graduate. Don't laugh at me when I say what graduate he is. He graduated from kindergarten. Okay, that's fine. I know it's not the same as high school, but there was still a level of, and mind you, not only my son was a 2020 graduate. I have a baby sister who is a graduate of 2020 from high school. Okay, so but it made me feel some type of way watching this past year's graduation and the different things that we as a community had to like come up with and maneuver around because of our federal government, but that's neither here nor there. It made me feel some type of way. I feel bad for these 2020 graduates. I feel bad that they was not able to experience their senior year the way that they're supposed to experience their senior year. Listen, if anybody should feel some type of way, it should be these 2020 graduates, because their senior year was basically stolen from them. They were robbed of the spring senior year event. That is senior prom, senior picnics, class trips. Like, I don't even know if they do class trips, but we're gonna say that they do. So Michael was one of those students that had a non-traditional senior year, and I hate that for him. But he did get accepted to a university. Want to say it's in Cleveland, Tennessee, where it is primarily white people and white people who believe in the Confederate flag. Now, If you don't know this by now, Married to Medicine is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. It is one of the most blackest, affluent cities in the United States. So when you are accustomed to seeing black affluent people, and you're accustomed to being the majority where you live in a major metropolitan city, it is a culture shock when you step outside of that bubble. No matter how big that bubble is, it is a culture shock when you step outside of it and you go into towns where now you are the minority. And not only are you the minority, you are the minority surrounded by people who believe in the Confederacy. So Michael has concerns, as rightfully so. Personally, I don't know. Me and my ex-husband and my son would have to talk about this, because I don't know that I would. I feel, for me, this is not anything against Dr. Simone and Cecil, which is her husband, but I don't know if I would be willing to have my son, who is quote unquote sheltered in a sense, right? And going into an environment that is toxic, right? Intentionally toxic. I just don't see myself signing off on that. I know my son will be by law legal, but technically he's not legal to me. I don't care if you 18, I don't care if you 19, I don't care if you 20, I don't even care if you 21. You still don't really know how this world works. And as a parent, it is my responsibility, even at those ages, to make sure that I set you up for success. And that would rub me wrong. Now, it would be different if they were already living in a very rural town where that was a normal thing for them to encounter. That would be different. But I personally cannot see myself taking my son out of a metropolitan city into a rural town just because he got a scholarship. No. Because to me, his emotional stability is way more important to me. In the same breath, I know y'all might eat me up alive. It's like, you know, when he gonna learn? I don't want that to be the lesson. Like, can we do this like in what's the dance? Can we like do this in baby steps? Like, that's like being thrown in the middle of the ocean. No, I cannot imagine. I would be. I have psoriasis. I would be inflamed every single day because my nerves. I wouldn't be able to do it. About Toya and Dr. Eugene in their suburban life. This is one of those fast forward moments. Eugene is an emergency room doctor. I think he's actually, last season he was promoted, if I'm not mistaken, to like the head ER. So he manages the entire emergency room of doctors, nurses, and medical staff. So with that said, especially with this being in May when they were showing us the footage, this was still in the early parts of COVID, and people still trying to figure out like what the hell this disease is and the impact that it is having on people. So he is, as a emergency room head doctor, he's already working long hours. So add COVID-19 to it, he is probably working double the shift. So one of the things that stood out is that Toya made this statement, made this comment that Dr. Eugene is working these long hours and he barely has time for his family. You know, in one hand, I completely understand where she's coming from. Because especially if you love your spouse, your significant other, you know, you miss their presence, you miss their energy, you miss your intimacy with them. And intimacy is not necessarily having to be physical, right? Or sexual, if you will. You just miss their presence. So I totally get that in one aspect, but it did come across as selfish, which Toya sometimes come across that way, especially when it comes to her husband, because it seems as though Dr. Eugene is like a stand-up husband. I'm not going to say he's perfect, because no husband is perfect, but he does seem to be a very present husband. He's not one of those husbands that come across that, you know, once he gets home from work, that he feels like that's all he has to do. He just needs to come home, bring home the bacon, if you will, and that's it. No, he looks as though he contributes to the house and the raising of their children, which to me, you can't get any better than that, in my opinion. So one of the things that I don't think that we fully comprehend and fully have processed is the day-to-day interactions that healthcare professionals, especially those that work in the emergency room, have to deal with on a regular basis outside of or pre-COVID. They are experiencing the worst of the worst, right? They are experiencing variations of highs and lows. These people, I can bet my life that some of these doctors and healthcare professionals, nurses, clinical staff, or however, they have PTSD. You can't tell me that they don't. They are witnessing levels of trauma, physical trauma, that I know penetrates their emotional state of mind. And especially seeing this every day, I know there has to be some sense of numbness that they have to feel. So then you compact that with COVID-19. This does not, again, take away from the fact that they're still trying to handle patients that are having non-COVID-19 related health issues coming into the emergency room. And then adding that with an overwhelming number of people who are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, and then trying to figure out, with no guidance from the state, no guidance from the federal government at the time, how to navigate that. I do understand where people come from when they say that Toya was not coming across as very sympathetic to Dr. Eugene's situation, because I don't think any of us have actually truly was able to understand the magnitude of what this disease was doing to people's lives. I'm sure hindsight is 20/20. She understands. The next scene is of Dr. Contessa and Dr. Scott. Scott's niece has come over and is able to watch the kids along with her girlfriend, and they seem to be more natural, holistic, which to me, I think is actually extremely beneficial. Not to say, and it is to me, it is a beautiful balance between the two. Here you have two doctors who believe in science of a medical standpoint, right? Of a westernized standpoint, right? But then you have his niece and his niece's girlfriend who believe in the science of holistics. And they are introducing yoga, but they introduce to their children meditation, which I'm definitely into. They introduce their children to crystals, which I am extremely into, because I've introduced that to my son and my niece and nephew. And they're introducing them into different ways to relax. and that is introducing sage or Palo Santo, different types of natural medicinal herbal incense to center yourself, right? And their youngest daughter, Layla, who seems to be like this hyper young child, which most children are, right? Rightfully so. Dr. Contessa is here for it. She's here for anything that is going to calm Miss Layla down. Shout out to Dr. Contessa, who's actually finished her program in public health, which she strives to one day be the United States, is it Surgeon General? Yes, Surgeon General, which is a huge undertaking. So we've moved on to Dr. Jackie and Curtis, her husband's scene. Yeah, I don't like Curtis. I've never seen it for this man. I don't know what it is. You know what? I'ma lie. I think Dr. Jackie deserves better. Now, I am nobody to determine and dictate what someone deserves. I am of the belief that whatever someone wants for themselves, even if it's against what I believe that they deserve, I have no problem in respecting that, right? I don't like Curtis. And I'm not going to say I don't forgive Curtis in regards to his transgression. But I didn't like that motherfucker before he stepped outside of Dr. Jackie and his marriage. So anytime he comes on the scene, I'm just like, I like Dr. Jackie without Curtis involved. But anywho, Dr. Kurt, girl, he wishes. Anyways, Dr. Jackie and Curtis have completed the renovations of their house. It is beautiful. It is magnificent. It kind of looks like Toya's house. So in that sense, I'm not impressed. So Dr. Jackie's house looks amazing. When last season, when her and the designers were going through Dr. Jackie's vision, I couldn't see it because Dr. Jackie's house didn't look like what her house was could fit the vision, but they did that. It is beautiful. So now they're currently working on furnishing the houses. And Curtis Curtis wants to talk about, or, you know, side eye the money that it's going to take to furnish this house. Might I add that Dr. Jackie, let me rephrase this. Dr. Jackie is that bitch, with or without her husband. Okay, so I don't know who's funding this. I have an idea, but I'm not going to overstep or make any assumptions. But I digress. Dr. Jackie talks to, or opens up to, Curtis in regards to her relationship with Dr. Simone. And he basically is what any supportive husband is going to be. He's going to try to rationalize be a rationalized mind for her, and just basically speak to the truths of what Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie are to one another. And one of the things that I understand about Dr. Jackie, when you're always accustomed to being the bigger person, and then you stepped into this next phase of your life where you realize that sometimes being the bigger person is actually not beneficial to you. Sometimes people, especially if they know you, they know your patterns, right? They know your weaknesses. They know your weak spots. And I'm not saying that Dr. Simone is trying to take advantage of Dr. Jackie. That's not what I'm saying. But as we continue to evolve and as we continue to grow and mature in our journey, we identify certain things of ourselves, especially for those of us who tries our hardest to be, sunshine, because you then sacrifice how you feel and you diminish parts of yourself of not only of how you feel, but your stance in regards to this. Being the bigger person means I'm going to push my feelings aside because I know that you won't. And I want this thing, this rift between us, to no longer exist. And to me, that is not fair all the time, especially because Dr. Jackie did not do anything to cause this rift between the relationship. She has tried her hardest based on what we've seen and based on what we have grown to know of Dr. Jackie, which, based on that apology with Buffy, will forever be queen. You understand me? Baby, she taught us a level of humility that we all need to be schooled on, right? Okay. But it takes away how Jackie feels in regards to this. When you are always the one to having to be the bigger person, it's like, you know what? You wash away how you feel. That's not fair. And so I get why Dr. Jackie feels exhausted, because if you're always constantly being the person that's being the bigger person, first of all, that in and of itself is what I would consider toxic. Now, if there was this misunderstanding or this give and take or this level of balance between the two where, there's just certain things where, one person takes the L for both and the other person takes the L for both, then okay, I can see it. But it seems as though, just based on the personality of Dr. Jackie, she's always being the bigger person. So when you step into this next phase of your life where, you know what, I'm tired of being invalidated. I'm tired of me pushing away and sweeping under the rug my feelings. Then the person who is accustomed to you always being that bigger person don't know how to process it. They take it personal even more because this is not the way that you've been operating. And I'm not saying that there's not a level of opportunity for both, but I do understand where Dr. Jackie is coming from. It is exhausting, right? To be in the middle of something that really ain't your motherfucking problem. If we're just being honest, it's not Dr. Jackie's problem. This is shit between you and Dr. Heavenly. I don't care how long we've known each other. Bitch, that's y'all's problem. So what if we're friends? I'm not choosing between you two. And like Dr. Jackie said, which again shows you how much of a stand-up ass woman this woman is. She said, if I got to pick and choose, I don't need this show. Now, how many women could say that when this show is paying them extremely well? It's another source of income for them. How many women would say, Dr. Jackie was like, I don't need the show. This show, if I have to pick and choose between the two, I'm going to go my separate ways. We all should strive to be like Dr. Jackie. And that's on period. Now, here's where Anila and I are going to butt heads. I don't care, and this is the same issue I have with Drew from Real Housewives of Atlanta. I do not care if you've been a fan of this show and you've watched this show and watched season after season. It's okay to be a fan, right? What is not okay is if you now transition from being a fan to a castmate and you speaking on things that you don't have history of, right? Now, we don't know if this woman really even has a relationship with any of the doctors, but when Toya was giving her commentary as it relates to Dr. Heavenly and the birthday party she's throwing for Dr. Damon, be seen, not heard. You know what I'm saying? That's what Anila needs to do. She needs to be seen and not heard as it relates to commentary that she should act like she's not privy of. Like, no, that's not your place. Even if this is your friend that's speaking on her experience, with you being a new castmate or a cast member, especially with an already established fan base, people not gonna take you talking about people, even if they not your favorite personality, they're just not going to naturally take you adding ad-libs and commentary to the dynamics of the relationship that's already been established. So that would be my advice. Don't do it. Don't set yourself up for failure, girl. It just won't work. Okay. Dr. Jackie looks like she is giving us 80s vibes, if you will. And Dr. Contessa is giving us glam for the gods. You understand me? They look like they're attending two different events. And I totally get Dr. Contessa's stance. Like, listen, girl, I have been cooped up for months. If I actually made a post about this a few weeks ago, like, you know, growing up, I used to see people dress up, like get very glam to go to the grocery store. And I'd be like, why is this motherfucker dressing like they going somewhere in this grocery store? Okay, I didn't know what they knew. Okay, what my mama used to say, what my mama still tell us, keep living. Okay, baby, keep living. Baby, from here on out, 2020 has taught me I'm not saving my best for the right moment. Bitch, I'm coming into the grocery store glam. Okay, I'm going to the beauty supply house glam, if I so choose. Baby, you get all the sparkles, the razzle dazzle. I'm not waiting on a moment. I am the moment. I'm creating the moment. And that's what Dr. Contessa was giving us, baby. She was giving us glam. And one of the conversations that obviously stuck out was the conversation of Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone's relationship, and Dr. Contessa speaking on the fact that Dr. Contessa and Dr. Jackie are basically the foundation. They are the glue as it relates to the dynamics of the relationship of the different personalities on this show. And I get it. You know, when you look to these people as, when you look up to these women and you see that there is an infraction to people that you look up to, it kind of then makes everything else seem unstable, if you will. So I get it, but I also get Dr. Jackie's stance. Like, I'm tired. I'm tired. If I have to be the only one always bending and always having to be to take the first step, no, I'm exhausted. And if that is the way that our relationship has to be, then personally, I'm okay. I have peace. And I think that's, even though it hurts Dr. Jackie, I feel like she has peace. It's a tough pill to swallow, but, you know, you can't argue with someone who has peace of mind once they have come to terms with a situation. Bitch, you cannot, baby, you can't pay for peace of mind. It's priceless. And once you get there, ooh, it's hard to come back from it. Catch. One of the things I also don't necessarily agree with Dr. Contessa is calling Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone stubborn. In this instance, I don't think Dr. Jackie is stubborn. I think she's tired. I think she's exhausted. I think she's had enough of being the bigger person. And I think she is expecting and she is wanting Dr. Simone to step up in the same way that Jackie has consistently stepped up throughout the course of their friendship. It is, if you've never been that person to always be the bigger person, then it will be hard for you to understand what and how that feels energetically and emotionally. It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your spirit. And so I think that we have known Dr. Jackie to be an upstanding woman. And because we've grown accustomed for Dr. Jackie to be this upstanding woman, that our expectations of her has been set. And so we want her and we expect for her to, you know, continue to repeat the same patterns. And what Dr. Jackie is saying is that she's reached this level of exhaustion. If me being your friend requires for me to always have to diminish and belittle my feelings to appease you, I don't have it in me. You can't do anything but respect that. And if you cherish your friendship the way that you cherish your friendship, then you have to actually now in turn, Dr. Simone, do some self-reflection and figure out, you know what? I have to take some accountability. I have to be a grown woman in this situation and say, you know what? I'm going to have to take this L because my friend for the past however many years we've been friends, however many different peaks and valleys that we've gone through, she's been the one to have to carry this weight, not even necessarily with me, but with other people. She's always had to be the bigger person and had to understand where other people are coming from. It is now time for other people to understand where Dr. Jackie is coming from. It's only right, it's only fair, and it's called balance. So shout out to Dr. Heavenly. This is not to take away from Dr. Heavenly doing everything that she can to make sure that everyone is safe. There is a level of social distancing and that still people are able to celebrate Dr. Damien turning 50 years old. As I get older, I appreciate life. I am more aware and cognitive of how fragile life is. So listen, I'm all about celebrating the goodness of turning and celebrating a birthday. So the next scene is Toya and the new woman talking about the rift between Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Simone. Dr. Heavenly at this point is like, listen, girl, I'm not fucked up with doing whatever I need to do with Dr. Simone to make Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie's relationship work. First of all, it's not Dr. Heavenly's responsibility to make Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie's relationship work. That is between, again, Dr. Simone and Dr. Jackie. And it's actually not even Dr. Jackie's responsibility. It is Dr. Simone. Dr. Simone is the one who has a problem. She is the one who needs to figure out how to make things better. Because, again, Dr. Jackie did not do anything to create this wedge in their relationship. But nevertheless, people feel as though Dr. Simone is not going to do what it takes. I don't know if Dr. Simone is the only child, but damn if she ain't giving us only child syndrome. That is what she's giving me. I need to figure out if she's the only child, but nevertheless. So while they're trying to figure this out, you have Toya chiming in, which she can chime in. She was a part of that. This is where, again, new castmate, girl, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. You know, as you get older, you got to figure out, this is saying, you got to know your place. I know you're a new castmate, but things that happen before you don't need to speak on. You need to keep those thoughts and opinions to yourself until someone invites you in the conversation, the people that it's pertaining to, Specifically, Dr. Heavenly, Jackie, and Simone, not Toya. And if y'all gonna talk about it, you need to make sure you're not mic'd up. Okay? Because no ma'am, that you gonna rub people the wrong way, and they don't know you, right? So their first impression of you is, this bitch got nerve. I'm just saying. So one of the things that we all appreciate about Toya is that she's gonna keep it 1,000 with you, right? So even though she's been inebriated, she's extremely intoxicated, she is one of those to call a thing a thing. And she did call out Dr. Simone, and she called out Dr. Heavenly, which she wasn't wrong in when she called them out. Even though the conversation didn't have anything to do with her, because she's a part of the reunion when all of this makeup occurred. So even though some people may feel like she's out of turn for speaking because it has nothing to do with her, in a sense, I do understand why she chimed in, inebriated and all, and making a stance like, listen, let me make this plain for y'all. Because Dr. Heavenly made a statement to Simone like, listen, I'm not finna kiss your ass no more, but I want to know like why I haven't heard from you. And, you know, apparently the reunion took place in December of 2019. And this birthday was somewhere in the summer of 2020. So you have literally 5 to 6 months when this of this time span. So you could say that in December 2019, these women made up, but then they went 5 to 6 months without speaking to one another. And the argument that Toya is making is like y'all both phony, right? Because if this relationship was extremely important to you, Dr. Simone, you wouldn't have said at the reunion that everything was everything. And Dr. Heavenly, you wouldn't have waited 5 or 6 months to say, hey, Dr. Simone, what is we good or is we not? You're on some Birdman shit, right? So I get Toya's stance. You can hate or love Toya, but I think Toya is actually very needed because she's gonna keep people honest, and you have to respect that. So that was the end of that episode, and this was long and drawn out. Hopefully I get more comfortable doing these videos and these recaps or thoughts and opinions on recaps. So until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.